There we have it. Welcome to the July 8th meeting of the Nantucket Memorial Airport Commission. We are meeting in a hybrid format with all commissioners present except for Ms. Topham, who will not be joining us tonight. Please use care if you're online to mute your microphone if you're not speaking. And please direct any comments through the chair. And with that, again, this meeting is being both audio and video recorded. Are there any questions or concerns with the agenda as published? Hearing none, we'll consider that adopted. Are there any questions or concerns with the draft meetings from June 17th, draft minutes from June 17th? Hearing none, we'll consider those adopted. Is there a motion to ratify the warrant from June 25th?
So,
Is there a second?
second,
I think everybody's here, so we actually don't have to do roll call votes. So all in favor, please say aye.
Hi,
And chair votes aye. Public comment for any items not on the agenda. Do we have anyone in the public?
we don't.
Okay, there's no one in the public in the room. So we'll move on, Mrs. Smith, to pending leases and contracts, and I would ask if we could separate out the one on actually, that's fine, just go ahead.
You bet. Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, going down the list, the first one is with Robert B. Hour. It's a contract amendment. Source funding is capital. This is the monies that we are receiving back from Mass DOT, their portion of the project. So coming back to the airport, these were the ineligible items that the FAA wouldn't cover, but Mass DOT was willing to pay. So those include the noise monitoring units, the airfield security cameras, Hangar 4 apron replacement, landside sewer manhole replacement, runway 6 fence relocation, and of course the runway 624 centerline mill and overlay project that was done this summer. That's in the amount of $602,721.49. The next one is a contract task order with McFarland Johnson. This is in reference to the PFAS treatment system. The airport was awarded about a $1.2 million grant for a potential treatment of PFAS. It is a compound that in essence is injected into the earth, captures the PFAS and turns it into an inert salt. And the grants were very limited. There was only $5 million worth of grants that the FAA put out nationwide, and the airport received 1.2 million. We got a decent lion's share of that grant, which is to be commended for the airport. And so this is what this contract will be, is for McFarland Johnson to proceed with those engineering services to basically test this product and see how effective it can be for the airport where PFAS is found. The next one is with Premier Fence. This is for the South Ramp Sound Wall Barrier Construction Project. We were able to receive the contract for the total amount of 4.174 million with some change there. And the project is slated to hopefully begin this fall and then be fully completed by May 15th of next spring. So those are the three here. The fourth one I have is a change order with Pearl Company. However, we feel that there needs to be some more clarification on the items outlined in that change order. So I do ask not to go to any vote for Pearl Company this evening, but for the other three, I do ask for your vote of approval.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Are there any questions?
I just was gonna comment on the Pearl thing, so I'm glad you pulled that back because I don't understand why there's any overruns in those areas at all.
I had the same questions. I think we definitely need to have, I want to give the contractor or project manager and designer an opportunity before I jump to conclusions, but I definitely raised some questions, and if after you've received a bit of information, do you also have any commissioners, any questions specifically, please reach out to Mr. Smith, but he's looking into it. And I think we all need more information before we get into that. So thank you for that. Go ahead. Yeah, I do too, so please go ahead. So go ahead.
The on the wall thing, right? The contract piece of that, I read through that today and I was kind of like, I thought it was funny at the end where it was like a $2,500 a year, like thing at the end of 27. if they don't finish or something, and it seems like completely like, inadequate for that, right? Like if they're in breach and not done by, the 27th, I think the fine should be. I don't know, it just seemed like out of place to me. I looked at what we got charged out here from Pearl because we were late by 2 months? It was like, what was it, 30? However much a month was, I forget now. It's a lot of money because they couldn't start on time. And here ours was like $2,500 if they're not done on time. So I feel like we should look at that. And maybe I have it out of context or something, but it seems that if we're gonna have that penalty in there, it should be more appropriate for the size of the project and with the delays, right? Like,
Sure.
Is that in the four corners of the contract that,
it's in the base, yeah, it was in the contract itself, and okay, it's like, and towards the end of it.
yeah, it's pretty hard to modify a contract after you have signed it.
Fair enough, I just meant like looking forward, it's like,
Yeah.
we should have that protection in there.
Yeah.
Like both ways, right? Like
Yeah.
Pearl had, I said, when Pearl came up with that, I was like, I hope we have that in our favor too, right? If they're not done on
Oh, we do.
equivalent, right?
Yeah.
We don't, but
Yeah.
we should, right? That's my point.
Yeah, it's hard to modify a contract like that.
After
Without,
the fact,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, no, I understand that.
So I'm just trying to download that. I read it over quickly, but I didn't catch that one piece. So maybe we should just spend a couple of minutes on that to see if it's the kind of thing we can work through specifically.
Let's look it in.
We're at,
and it says like, it had to be done by 27, was the end date of it.
down the other way.
Go ahead.
You're looking for the cleaner.
Payments to contract, period of services.
I thought it was Premier Fence. We talked about.
Yeah, it's Premier Fence that we're having a couple
Okay,
minutes to
okay.
look
Yeah,
over.
I just want to make sure.
So if you also could look through that and see if you could find, any clause that addresses, work not being completed.
Remember the date was the year 27 and it was $2,500. So I was like, it's kind of silly, you know.
That seems crazy though, if we signed it, we signed it.
No, we haven't signed this yet. This is for consideration right now.
Yeah,
But, instead of putting it off a month, if we could
sure.
figure this out quickly. I think that it's worth trying to address that. And I don't know if you found that section or could.
On the
we always keep it
contract?
back. This is in the Premier Fence contract. If,
About the liquidated damages.
Yes.
That's what I figured.
what clause is that?
Exhibit alpha.
Oh, it's in the exhibit.
That's
That's-
yeah.
Oh, okay,
I wasn't sure, I
so,
didn't remember what it was.
oh, okay, so, the airport may retain some, but each calendar year.
$2,500 every year that they're not done. It seems so.
What would a more typical liquidated damages amount be? Do we know?
No, that was added by our consultants, McFarland Johnson. To the contract, maybe Rich will be able to.
So Rich is here,
You're talking
Rich,
about-
could you help us with that?
It should say $2,500 per calendar day, Mr. Chair.
I figured that's what I
That's
was
the
gonna-
problem,
That's
okay.
what I
so
figured
thank-
it should have been. I thought that sounds
Yeah,
reasonable.
right,
Yeah.
right, so,
Yeah.
could we,
Sure.
strike, calendar year
Yeah,
and
it
change
should be
that
per
to
calendar day.
That sounds right.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mark, very,
Eagle eye.
Good luck.
all right, then,
Free dinners.
and then with that.
Well, then it references Sundays and holidays.
On Premier
Okay.
Fence, this is, so, and for the public's benefit, this is the contract for, the noise barrier wall to go along the expanded south, apron, which is a replacement for what was going to be, the mound, using soil. So that's not happening. This is happening as it was committed to by the commission. And, so, we're happy to see that move forward, I think. I had a question on the, now I switched to this, but on the, PFAS, related grant. Now, as a federal grant, should we be holding this contract until any, matters related to the grant assurances and the grants are worked out? Is there a deadline that if we put this off, my concern is entering into a contract that if we weren't able to receive the grant, we would be on the hook for.
Yeah, I
Can-
do
can I
believe.
answer that?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mr. Lasner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We being Nantucket already have that grant.
Yeah,
You
thank you.
received the
That answered my
grant.
question.
Yes,
Okay, great.
it was received a year ago.
Okay,
Good.
with that, are there any other questions, as related to the items on exhibit one described by Mr. Smith?
Mr. Chair, I do believe you had asked to put up the design.
Yeah, so I saw
Do
that
you
they
want to
had
review
that up.
anything with that?
Yeah, if you don't want
Okay.
to mind putting that back up again, I think just quickly for the public's, this is the plan, if we wanted to zoom in just a little bit, of the, of what the premier fence installation is. And I know it's a little bit small, but that line, and we're going along the existing tree line. Again, design being done, to minimize any further disturbance. The fence, I can pull up that at the same time, or I read it a little bit. Is 20 feet above grade with a 3 foot 45-degree angle section. The lights along that ramp are 15 feet high, so the wall, the barrier is actually above that. It follows that wooded area. It is 1,300 feet long and does include on the south end a 40-foot return. Again, as some of the suggestions we had received from the public, I just wanted to take a couple minutes to go over so that the public is aware that their comments are well received and considered. And we do the best here that we can to accommodate those. And so I think this is a community benefit project that I hope is appreciated and I believe will work well. So thank you for both also to MJ for both all their work on this as a bit of a moving target and then for having this ready for tonight. I appreciate that. So with that being said, is there a motion to approve the pending contracts described by Mr. Smith? I said,
So moved.
is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And we'll move on to airport master plan presentation. Scannell?
It's time we'll turn the time over to Laura Cameron with Macron and Johnson.
Thank you very much. All right, let me know if you can see the cover screen. All right, I see now. Excellent. Yeah, so for today's presentation, I wanted to go over a little bit more about where we are in the master plan process. Some of the facility requirements. I know we talked about those a little bit last time, and you've received the chapter for this, as well as then how we got to where we are looking at runway 624 alternatives, the whole airport alternatives, and then the resulting implementation and financials. What the airport's currently doing, sustainability initiatives the airport has, what items are planned for the future, the airport layout plan, and then the next steps of the end of the project and post master plan. So this is a little bit of a repeat, just to make sure we're all on the same page here. So we've worked through the inventory, the forecasts were approved by the FAA. Got environmental overview and facility requirements in place. And then for the alternatives, we compare any build alternatives to no build alternatives, since that'll be part of the follow-on environmental review. So it's good to take a look at that now. For implementation and financials, incorporating how the preferred airport alternatives will be phased and what kind of financial implementations that will have for the 20-year planning period. And assessing a different scenarios for base development And the final result will be the airport layout plan that will be submitted to the FAA for approval. Throughout this process, we've conducted public outreach through the technical advisory committee, through board presentations, through public open houses. And we'll talk about a little bit more. There is one more public open house coming up. So we're going to jump right into the facility requirements since they're the first three we've covered previously. And the goal of the facility requirements is to identify the needs for the alternatives, looking at FAA standards, Part 77 airspace reviews, and the impacts that the approved forecasts may have on the airport, on runway length items, on hangars, hangar needs, apron areas, and anything associated with those. So these are some of the key action items. I'm not going to go through these line by line, as I'm sure you're familiar with these. Wanted to point out a couple of specific items. The runway safety area is a key item and has been a driving factor for the FAA for a long time. And so that one will be something that's driving the runway 624 alternatives. The other thing is we look at Cat 2 approaches. The airport currently has a special authorization Cat 1 approach, which helps a lot. From the start of this project, you didn't have that available, so the airport is able to and continue to improve its instrument approach procedures. On the terminal side, I think you've probably seen these headlines from the Nantucket Current. During peak times, especially if there are delays, the terminal size is too small for all the areas that are going on. So identifying ways to repurpose space as much as possible and seeing if the building footprint can be improved within a 20-year planning period, access road and circulation, as well as associated parking. On the general aviation side, so looking at hangars, looking at based and seasonal tie downs, and an apron space available, as well as airport administration and fixed base operator building space. Again, this is going to be a combination of administrative controls. The current ramp management plan is making a big difference. So the numbers that you're seeing here are based on general calculations. Those can go up and down based on demand. If demand grows at the rate forecast, and also understanding that when you protect for a certain amount of space per aircraft, the ramp management will make a big difference in honing that down and allowing an opportunity for being able to be flexible with these numbers. Again, optimizing existing space is always an option for buildings and apron areas. For support facilities, being able to install cameras to help the airport traffic control tower, so the air traffic control tower staff be able to see certain parts of the airport, updating some of the technology and the tower itself. The new truck, some of these items were obviously created a while ago and have now been implemented, which is always nice to see. I've seen things like building updates. Continuously, vehicles will need to be replaced as they age, and then looking at some of the fuel storage items and potential electric charging stations. So all of those informed looking at the alternatives. So like mentioned before, we kind of took a top-down approach looking at, you want to start from the runways out. So the primary runway 624, wanted to identify how best to meet the runway safety area there and being aware of some of the items like the coastal erosion. Wanted to see how best to accommodate that and still make sure that the runway is functioning in 20 years. Once we picked the preferred runway 624 alternative, we went to full airside, the remainder of the airside of the airport, and then identified landside alternatives with the end result of having a whole airport alternative, preferred alternative. So considerations for the runway alternatives. The runway safety area is a top priority from the FAA. The key purpose of the runway safety area is to reduce risk of damage to aircraft, provide a space for aircraft to stop should there be an overrun or undershoot, and improve accessibility in the case of an emergency for emergency vehicles to be able to access that. You can see, a moment here, right here, that corner of area. So in the perfect world, the runway safety area would extend all the way around here. The localizer would be located outside, which in this case is not possible because of the beach. And similarly, there's some other items like the fence, the roadway, all of those items are within the runway safety area. In a perfect world, you would have the full item. Now, the FAA has issued a runway safety area determination, which indicates that it's an acceptable level of safety that the airport is currently operating with. But in a perfect world, especially during planning studies, we always try to see if we can get the full dimensional safety area or see if there are incremental improvements that can be made due to new technologies, changes in circumstances, and just seeing what we can do. A unique factor about Nantucket is its proximity to the coast and having these episodical coastal erosion impacts. That makes a difference because it means that we can't, in some cases, could just fill the runway safety area, provide the space there. That's not an option here. And so we looked at what's feasible based on those average coastal erosion limits. So we looked at what it would look like in 20 years. Where would the coastline be, assuming these average rates continue? And then worked from there to be able to provide a standard runway safety area. So per one of the FAA orders, there are a number of alternatives that should be reviewed when trying to address runway safety area issues. So we looked at all of those, keeping as is, providing the full dimension in place, reducing the runway length, shifting it along its center line, rotating the runway. Sorry, relocate. That one's not part of the FAA required ones, but rotate the runway and installing an engineered material arresting system, which is like a truck overrun that you see on the highways, except for aircraft. It's very crushable, fast crushable material that captures aircraft and makes them slow down drastically to be able to stop in less space. We added the relocation of runway 624 in there just to see how there were ways we could accommodate the full safety area. As we went through this process, the outcome was that the shifting the runway along its current alignment was deemed the most feasible for construction feasibility, for minimizing impacts, and still being able to provide full safety area and protect from that erosion, coastal erosion. I don't know if people want to ask questions throughout, feel free to interrupt me. Otherwise, I will just keep going at this point. So taking that into consideration, so like I said, we started with runway 624, then we built on and looked at the remainder of the airside to be able to accommodate items. This figure includes some of the recommendations from the geometry study, so taxiway recommendations that were identified as the preferred alternative there, as well as feedback that we got from the airport, the tower, anyone on the technical advisory committee, and was solidified during our third technical advisory committee meeting. Hangar construction and apron construction will occur on an as-needed basis. And for this, in this case, this preferred alternative lot does not fully meet all facility requirements identified. There's an opportunity, like you said earlier, to optimize, reconfigure space, be able to take administrative controls like the existing rent management plan, and being able to make things work very, very effectively with less space. Once we figured out aeronautical activities and airside needs, landside needs related to the airport, we looked at areas that could be developed for non-aeronautical development. So you want to make sure that airside aviation stuff gets looked at first and then potential non-aeronautical development. So what you're seeing here in blue are potential non-aeronautical development areas. Some of those are carryovers from previous studies. Some of them I think are slightly tweaked because of recently added environmental mitigation areas. There's some areas that you'll see here that are not noted as aeronautical or non-aeronautical at all, especially large area in here because of environmental sensitivity. So now that we've identified the preferred alternative, the next step is how do these projects get phased out? What are some of the costs associated with the projects? Looking at funding availability and prioritizing the needs. So projects were phased out into 3 phases. Phase 1, which is the green, shades of green, is the 1 to 5 year time frame, so very short term. Phase 2 is the orange, dark orange, reddish color, and that's going to be years 6 through 10. And then the blue items are shown as phase 3, which is looking at years 11 to 20. Now, these are estimates. Again, some of these projects may change based on funding need, based on reprioritization of projects. This is just a general plan in place. We just wanted to make sure that there is a plan in place because it's easier to adjust something rather than forgetting something in the long run. And also looking at this holistically, we want to make sure that things work together. One of the items you see there is runway 624, which is coming up for rehabilitation, reconstruction. And as part of that, it makes sense to do the shift of the runway concurrently. Now, because of the cost of the project, it was phased out into different segments. And so that's why you're seeing the runway in 3 different colors. I'll take a moment here for people to digest this a little bit.
That's fine.
All right, thank you. So then moving forward, a couple of things. The airport has existing sustainability initiatives and noise reduction initiatives that are in place. So the geothermal process, PFAS projects that are ongoing, continued monitoring, the noise compatibility program that was approved by the FAA, and the Good Neighbor Fly Friendly program. We're looking forward to the future. This obviously the first one, the ARF truck has already been replaced and is now in use, which is fantastic. The construction of the sound barrier is ongoing, so some of those projects are in place. One of the things is considering a voluntary Part 150 noise study. Also coordinating with the tower and the FAA on potential new flight paths for approaching and departing aircraft. Looking into sustainable aviation fuel, which is the lower environmental impact jet aid fuel, and on the opposite side, unleaded aviation fuel storage, as well as electric aircraft and vehicle charging stations. So now that we're taking projects in the different phases, we did a preliminary cost estimate to identify approximately how much these projects would cost. What you're seeing here is airport revenue being implemented and put back into the airport. The ASMP is a state MassDOT share. Right now, for phase 1 are the only two that there are 2 projects that were identified as being eligible for ASMP funding. The phase 2 and 3 projects did not have that, but if things shift around or additional projects become available, whenever possible, the MassDOT funding should be used. Pavement maintenance projects are not included in this list, so this includes mostly the additional items. So ongoing maintenance will still need to be conducted on existing pavements, buildings, navigational aids, etc. So when we break this out in the short term, so looking at the airport's historical financial performance, having a net income is a fantastic thing. So it's nice to see the ongoing non-operating revenue being able to be used for projects in addition to still having net income. So we're looking and trying to identify for the short term, the 5-year forecasting period, how that would translate into being able to fund some of these projects. And so you're seeing it's a lot of stuff all at once, but just identifying that even when taking information from non-operating revenue from the capital reserves to be able to fund the project, they're still anticipated to be a net income for the next 5 years and then projected out for the next 20 years as well. So being able, it looks like for the most part, a lot of the projects in the short term and the midterm will be able to be funded with FAA, federal, state, and local funding opportunities. The other nice thing is the airport is currently exceeding PFC timelines, so it's collecting passenger facility charge fees faster than originally scheduled. And that provides an opportunity to revise those plans and be able to continue to collect more passenger facility charges to be able to help with the local share on a lot of these projects. The last step in the master plan is the airport layout plan. So as you can see here, this includes the showing of all of those projects, the non-aeronautical areas on an FAA approved plan. So this is the airport layout plan sheet that is part of the master plan. There's a whole sheet set included with it, and all of that will be sent to the FAA for their review and approval. They only sign the airport layout plan, but the entire sheet set gets reviewed and commented on. That concludes the master plan then, once that sheet set is signed. And so as part of that, the next steps are the last open house, which is tentatively scheduled for August 5th. After that public open house, unless there are any changes to the airport layout plan, we will be submitting that for FAA approval and then providing the final master plan report. All right, thank you very much. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions, thoughts? Could we please receive a copy of the draft ALP as it currently exists? We could see it sort of in this presentation, but it's not really legible. So that we could start to review that with any questions or comments that any commissioners may have, I think would be really helpful. I saw a couple of little things. I don't want to sort of get into the, I don't think minutia type stuff here. But I think that would be helpful if you could.
Sure, yeah, so it's not quite ready for review yet. We're doing our internal QC on it right now. And then I want to make sure that it's a good enough place to be able to represent. But yes, I think that's something, depending, Warren, you and I can coordinate on that send out.
Would we be able to get that prior to the public open house?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Mhm.
You guys wouldn't want a draft to be on a poster board that we had sort of, everybody had a chance to review and offer any comments on. So thank you.
Yeah, that wouldn't be the case. I think the poster board would be something like this that shows the preferred alternative. We would not be putting an airport layout plan out if it wasn't yet reviewed. So, but we're happy to provide you a copy for review ahead of time.
Thank you.
Mhm.
The only other thing I had was that I appreciate that the addition of some of the bullet points on the future sustainability, but there's still no mention of the ramp management plan. And I thought that was one of the items that was going to get included here, and that as part of sustainability and noise reduction, that I think we should have a bullet point that it could be along the lines of, again, these are, again, sort of recommendation, or I think on your next page, I think there should be a bullet point that says something along the lines of active, north and south ramp management for operations. I mean, obviously that happens, but we put together a ramp management plan. It was committed, and I think that there's got to be more effort that's put forth towards when we're having events like, large private aircraft running for 4 hours at a time. We've got to address that. And I think to not have that in master, in the master, I really think it needs to be in there.
So we do have ramp management as part of the opportunities for itinerant aircraft parking in here. If that's something because it is ongoing, is that something you wanted to have here as part of the existing sustainability initiatives and noise reduction?
I would have thought it would have been a bullet point there as well, if it's not too late to add that. I think that would be, I think it would tie in to have it there as well. Because it's an initiative we need to continue to work on and develop. That's just my feeling.
Yeah, we can add that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any other comments? So with this, I think that, the next step is the open house. And then we would actually vote on adopting the ALP, if I understand the procedure correctly.
That's correct.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. Is there anyone from the public?
No one from the public.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Cam and, Mr. Lasden. I appreciate all your work on this. Did you have anything further, either of you?
No, I think we're all set.
Thanks. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Smith.
I don't think we need to go to a vote to accept the master plan at this point.
Right.
However, I'll continue to work with, McFarland Johnson to fine tune these things and then make sure we have a draft of what we're going to present at the public open house to you weeks in advance before that, so we're all aware of.
Well, that's actually a really good point. I'm glad you just mentioned that. So it's less than a month away. Could you briefly go, what is your plan for public outreach? I mean, midsummer type of a open house, time is, and what's the terminal, what's the plan for the open house, if you may, would, please? How
Yeah.
are we gonna outreach and what's the details of it?
Absolutely. So the last open house seemed to go very well. We had the terminal available where we had poster boards all throughout the terminal. So being able to provide notifications in the newspaper, putting it all social media aspects, both, a week in advance as well as right before, just to remind people to come join us. I think we've already worked on some of the wording on the press release. And the key thing was we wanted to make sure that this was during the summer season to be able to incorporate more of airport feedback and people who are here seasonally. And yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Well, I guess my concern is it's probably the busiest week of the year
Most complexity.
and we're gonna have a open house in our terminal. Are we able to accommodate that? Are we concerned with congestion? I mean, is this really the best plan, I guess, and location and everything? I'm just trying, I want to make sure it's well thought out. I want to be sure you guys understand exactly, like we're talking about, August 5th is.
That doesn't sound like a great idea to me at all. I would think late August, early September,
I would
we
have
still
thought.
have some trips here, but it's gonna be
Yeah,
Jan.
I would have thought,
Jan.
the beginning of September might be a little better than the first week of August. I mean, it's when Congress is in recess at the break. I mean, it's as busy as it gets. And the volume of traffic through the terminal, I'm trying to do that last open house was. There was none of the airlines were operating. I just don't know about trying to hold an open house. Right now, no, I mean, Mr. Smith, and.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys got any thoughts. I mean, if you guys think you can pull it off, I just wanted to raise that concern to make sure that and then you guys get in here with all your consultants. Or your other staff, I mean, would the second week of September not work for some
The
reason?
exigency, what?
I mean,
Yeah, what is-
that's
what
what I'm
is the-
wondering, is
what's
there
the driver?
is there any urgency?
We were asked to do this during the peak season to make sure, since the last public meeting was in the off season, to make sure to allow for everybody to be able to see what's going on and get feedback from as many people as possible. So that was the intent. I didn't realize that August 5th was one of the busiest weeks, but the goal was to have it after this commission meeting and before the peak season ended.
So, Mr. Chair, we did one in the SRE building in the past, little out of the way, but
Yeah, that's sort of the polar opposite. If you're trying to
Yeah.
invite public, I don't think we want to. People
Public,
can't
yeah.
even find, that's a whole nother.
sure.
Again, if you feel that you could do this presentation and there's a section of the terminal, perhaps like the old, like where the rental cars are based, like that
What about-
lobby by the restaurant, I don't know, but if you get over towards like you did last time, where everybody's queuing up and the ticket counters are all active. It's just, I just don't see
There's no
how.
room.
I don't see anyone
I
interested
don't
in
see
it
how
too.
that's gonna really work, and I appreciate that you wanted to capture the peak season. But that, I almost wonder that, that second week of September is still fairly busy. Still got a lot of seasonal homeowners, it might not be as peak summer, people's schedule might be a little bit more, I think some of the commercial service may have ramped down right after that. I don't know. I just feel like that timing might be a little bit better personally.
I agree.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the September, the majority of the people that live here.
Yeah,
That are,
they can
they're
read.
still here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like the seasonal people are still here.
Yeah.
Right,
So
right.
I
Yeah,
think you'll still
For the ones
capture.
that are, would be interested.
right.
I think
And
these-
parking that week of August, it all, I think combines to, while I love the goal of trying to get the greatest amount of outreach, that if we could pick a day, sometime in the second or third week of September, that might work when you revisit it, if that would work for you. And continue to work on this, I think that would be a better idea.
Yeah, let's see, does it make a difference that this open house is in the evening and not during the day? Given some of the lines that you're seeing, is that part of the factor as well?
I'd say like a 4 o'clock,
It's a
We were
five,
thinking about
five-
5 or
5 to
5:30.
7,
Yeah. That was the intent, was to do an evening.
I think 4 to 6 captures, or 5 to 7 personally, or
And so.
5 to 7,
Get out of
people
work.
get out of work.
Yeah,
exactly.
Point in it.
Yeah,
I don't know if that makes a difference in how busy the terminal will be for,
well, I think September it'll be fine, I mean, August, it's not gonna matter, August, it's 5 o'clock, it's still
It's not.
busy,
That's-
yeah,
it's
yeah,
the busiest-
yeah,
busiest
yeah.
time.
Yeah, I think we should just see what you can come up
Is
with.
there, Preston, do you know, is there a means to do it in the pilot lounge of the FBO? Is that a little easier to find for people? Or is that still pretty busy?
What about the people that need to use it in August, you're gonna be.
Yeah, not
I
August.
don't-
Yeah, right,
You guys know, I've not been there for Boston Bob's
Yeah,
ear thing.
I think the terminal.
Okay.
Does the town have like a play, like have somewhere to do it in, kind of like the
We should have it in the terminal.
Yeah.
I think.
I think you wanna
Yeah,
have that.
it's at the airport.
Yeah.
Oh,
We
yeah.
wanna have.
We can actually see this building and see
Yeah.
that.
Let's see what we can come up with if we could, please, or.
I know that 2 of the airlines are out Labor Day, which is the first. It's the first day of September this
We'll
year.
definitely ramp down.
And then
Yeah,
Delta's around the
mid-September.
8th of September.
Well, we don't have to hammer this out right now.
Okay.
I think we can carry on and then see what you guys can come up with, please.
you got it.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, South Apron ramp expansion.
Perfect. Yeah, so with that one, I think the final piece to this update is the fence relocation on the south end of the airport. That was officially completed last week and in place. Just nice job to those who were able to get it completed prior to June 30th. Mass DOT was willing to pay for it entirely if we could get it done by the 30th, and we did. So big shout out to all the stakeholders to get that done. It's been relocated. It looks really nice. So you guys want to go out on a trip, I'll take you out there and show you. So so that was the only update that I have for the South Apron ramp expansion. Yeah. So moving on to PFAS at this time, I'd like to invite Madison Collins, our environmental coordinator, to provide us with some updates.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so for PFAS, we are still delivering some bottled waters to homes. So this past month we've added 2 homes to the bottled water delivery, and both of those homes are on MVR. And we discussed this on July 2nd with Weston Solutions. And so these 2 homes are added to the 6 homes already receiving bottled water deliveries. So in total, that makes 5 on Monahans, 1 on Nobledier, and now 2 on NBR. There is a new Another item is that there is a new town PFAS coordinator. This man is named Andrew Shapiro, and he is actually going to be hosting an internal meeting with specific town departments later this month, and we are invited to that. A little fun fact, I guess, about him is that he was a graduate from Tufts University, which is my alma mater. So ironically, when I had gotten this job, I have already reached out to him. So I'm trying to, make that connection first and foremost as an alum. And then, we can hopefully start off on a good foot with being on this PFAS coordination committee, if that's a right word for it. Other things is that the lysimeters are being installed the week of the 14th, and these lysimeters will be for additional testing for our phase 4 PFAS remediation. So that will help us better identify where we want to have more or less remediation activity when it comes to, say, digging up soil, getting it cleaned, or using other types of solutions. But yeah, that's everything for PFAS this week or this month.
Thank you. Any questions?
I just have a comment. I like to pipe in here again. I know you guys are sick of hearing me about the geothermal system and all this, but I've done some research, and the challenge is put in a PFAS system because some of the shallow wells we have are contaminated now, the town wells. So in order to, that's part of the reason why we're having a lot of problem now, is because it's not completed yet. So I had a long talk with Mark Willett. He's invited us to come over there and look at their system that they installed over there, which I think could be very beneficial to us, because that system over there can handle 1,500 gallons a minute. We're looking for 175 to 200. That system cost $1.4 million. So I feel like we really need to be more aggressive at this. And there's also different medias to use, whether there's activated carbon and there's ionizing media that you can use. Mark told me that they expect that they're going to be able to run that media for 4 to 5 years. So $400,000 replacement cost at that time. But again, it's for a 1,500 gallon minute system, not a 175 gallon minute system. And that resin bed's nice because it pulls out long chain and short chain PFAS. Understanding that the airport only has a long chain problem, but hey, if it's there and we can clean it up, it doesn't hurt to run right through it. So, and that system right now is currently outside. They are going to put a cover over it just because to cover it. But with the water flow and everything, they don't even expect that it has to be heated, although they're gonna, heat it to any real temperature, right? So having looked at the system, gotten the feedback from Mark, the companies in Maine, they are already pre-approved through the state of Massachusetts to go into the water, to be used as a water treatment. So their way to get through the process was very fast, very few hiccups. And I really feel like this is our best avenue to cleaning up the problem that's out there. And going up there and digging up all this dirt, you're just disturbing all this material. And I know we're gonna be collecting some of it. There's a chance of it going, I don't wanna get into all that, but I really feel like this is a way that we can best recover and get that stuff out of the ground and resolve it personally. And at a reasonable cost, I think. But if you look at what they're doing, the town's doing for a system 10 times the size we do.
So how do we advance this? I presume it's gonna be with further discussion with Weston and Mr. Lasden. Do you have any thoughts on this? I know we've had some previous discussion, but I understand, and some would share Mr. Marks, we could study and study and study, but we already have a geothermal well system. Well, why can't we just put a filter in line? Right, and that's pretty much what you're saying.
Put a filter line, and then honestly, I feel like we should go to the state or the feds, wherever this next phase 4 cleanup thing has to go to, and say, hey, listen, how about this? We're gonna be able to pull everything out of the water by putting this system in here. Can this cover that? And make that be the primary part of our cleanup effort. And if we can get it done for this kind of money, I think that we're crazy not to look into this.
That's
And
persuasive,
explore that,
persuasive,
right?
yeah, good argument.
Yeah.
Mr. Last-
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So yes, we did speak about a couple things on the terminal. The last time we spoke, we actually decided not to move forward with the geothermal, but that's okay. But the whole discussion we had on the terminal was to hold off on everything until the notice of funding opportunity came out and to see if the airport was successful in getting some federal funding for terminal improvements.
So I think the point on that was the hold off on the geothermal was to go to a closed loop system. That's off the table. What we're talking about, and I know this is probably gonna tie in, and Ms. Collins, I'll recognize you again as well, to our phase 4 activities.
Mhm.
And I'm starting to, Mr. Marks has done a pretty deep dive into this, and it's something that, seems to make a lot of sense that should we not be getting a design together and understanding a cost while we wait for that funding opportunity, and then the decision would be whether we gotta pay for it or whether those funds come through, and perhaps we're gonna have a better position for those funds if we're shovel ready with the proposed solution.
So we did actually look at that treatment system early on
Right.
in the program definition document. We came up with the size of a sort of a building to store it in and some estimated costs. So we did,
I remember that. Now, is that in line with the same type of system that the town recently put in, or is that something we could just review?
yeah,
Do you have
we
perhaps
could
that in your
absolutely,
budget
yeah,
under
you could,
PFAS?
we could send
Stuff
you it
to
again to show
see.
you what we looked at, but we already did look at this type of treatment system.
But I guess my question is, could you check in with Comet Water? I understand that that it's the same technology, and if not, perhaps consider that and then bring forth, even if it is a 30% design or something along those lines that says, is this something that you guys, I think there's general support, and then we'd want to know from Weston as we work on all of this, but not kick it down the can, or kick it down the road a year or something. Let's try to see what we can figure out in the next couple of months. If there is, you already have those wells. I mean, maybe it's just overly logical and a highly regulated environment, but it does seem to make a lot of sense. So instead of trying to get in, I think we were perhaps overcomplicating things while trying to get a better improvement about reverse and flow and make other wells. What if we just take and put in an inline filter?
Sure,
That's
absolutely.
kind of, I think, what kind of bang for the buck would we get? And what kind of, credit would we get in the, regulatory environment? Though I think it's not just for that reason. I think it's part of doing the right thing to, scrub the water to the best of our ability.
And-
If we're already handling it, we're already paying to pump it, it's already going through our system.
Sure, absolutely. We can set
All
up a
right.
close, Mark.
Does that work?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, I just feel like we're missing a big opportunity
Yeah.
to take advantage of something that we have the most expensive part of the system done.
Yep.
And we just need to put the filter in the middle there, and then I don't know, I just feel like we're missing it, that's why, I keep reading it up, I'm sorry.
No, you don't have to apologize. Thanks for your efforts on that. It makes sense, I think we're trying to work through it collectively to see whether there are other ways to even improve that, but then nothing happens because you overcomplicate it. Whereas if this it could be more straightforward and it's something that perhaps then we could even get ready and decide whether, and then seek any grants or it's maybe something we have to fund.
Right, and I think that the benefit of doing it this way and looking at it, what the town's already doing is now we have the masses, right? We're both using the same system, we have the same company now.
Right,
Hopefully we
economy of
can
scale
piggyback
for
onto
maintenance and
We're doing the resin changes, we're gonna
Right.
piggyback with the town, do it
Yeah.
all together, right? And
Right.
hopefully that can help.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And
Thank you. And Ms. Collins, did you have something you want? I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Laston.
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Collins?
No, Mr. Lawson already covered what I was going to also follow up with. So thank you
Okay.
for just saying it for me.
Thank you.
I just want to offer that if anybody does want to see the system over there, Mark Villette's given me permission to take you over and show it to you, so. I mean, even Madison, if you want to come over and with me, I'd be happy to show it to you and at least so you can kind of see the magnitude of what their scale is versus what we need, so.
Thanks. We'll talk about it. Thank you. Anything else on PFAS?
Just to kind of piggyback with just to add a couple more things to Madison's report. Thank you, Madison. One of the homes that's receiving bottled water, it didn't have anybody living in it during the off season, so there was no bottled water supplied. But now that the summer tenants are there, we do have to provide that bottled water, so that's why we're doing that. Also, with those new lysimeter wells that are going to be installed over in Statue Park, as well as by Airport Gas. Airport Gas has consented to assist us with the installation and cleaning of those wells. And so we're working on the fine details on that. As well with in response to the MCP or the Massachusetts Contingency Plan that we have for the timeline of the phasing of the PFAS remediation. And in conjunction with the notice of finding, we are working with Mass DEP on documenting an extension to that timeline. I should hopefully have that by this week to be able to provide for you guys to see the draft. All right. That's all that I have for PFAS.
Okay, thank you. Crew quarters.
Crew quarters, the certificate of occupancy is still pending. We did receive the as-built from Bracken Company to this morning. However, the affidavit was not included. And some of the site as-built are still in the works per Pearl. I received their update this afternoon. We are continuing to ask the architects for these affidavits and these updates to get that certificate of occupancy completed as soon as possible. So I was supposed to be meeting with them today. Unfortunately, they had to reschedule for tomorrow. So hopefully more to come there, but we are hoping to be on track to get that certificate of occupancy by the August 1st deadline. That's the only thing holding up for us to get into the home. Also, we did a punch list walkthrough with maintenance and the contractor, just finding all the small minute stuff that needs to be patched up and worked, and so that's been completed. And then another question and issue came up in reference to the dorm irrigation. So it's been hydroseeded. There was some misinformation that the airport needed to be the ones to provide the watering of this. However, that is not true. We were able to find in the contract that it's the contractor's responsibility until the germination has started. So I was, like I said, supposed to meet with them today. Unfortunately, that got pushed off tomorrow. However, I was able to call the contractor today. He is well aware to get some temporary hoses, get some sprinklers out there, keep it going. Fortunately, in the interim, for the last 2 weeks, I've actually had my staff going out there and watering it on the days that we're allowed to, because I don't want this to go by. We need to have that germination started as soon as possible. However, we are in level 1 water restrictions, as you are well aware with the town. So that limits us to only watering on Tuesdays and Thursdays between 7 and 9 a.m. 7 and 9 a.m.
Is that
So
even if you're doing it with the hose?
from what we were told, yeah.
I thought you could do hose anytime. I don't know.
So I'll look into that.
Okay.
I'll look
I
into
don't know, because it's not pressing.
We're on town water, so
Yeah.
you could do soak or hose,
Okay.
but not spray.
Okay.
And, the issue here, and, I brought this up to, Mr. Smith, is that, this seed, they left it dry for so long before any advertisement on a drought, and it may need to be redone. And I'm very disappointed in the contractor. Sort of trying to put it on the airport and our owner project manager for letting that go for weeks when I was raising the issue and that you had to put during your busiest season, your people on this. This is up to them. And it might seem like a small thing, but I think it's really important. I don't think your ethics should have to go to that. And if the seed doesn't survive, that has to all be redone to do that.
Okay. For sure. And I do believe also we met internally with both my assistant manager and with our maintenance of potential ideas to install dorm irrigation in the future. Like I said, those are still, we're getting quotes for that, still in the infant stages there. And to what extent we should install some irrigation around it to keep the place looking presentable as people pass by. So we're working on that.
All right, and if you could forward us those as-bills, I
That's
think
absolutely.
we would like to see those too, please.
Yep.
And keep us posted on the CO, because it'll be before the next meeting.
Yeah.
But I think the whole commission would like, this has been a big project that the entire commission has spent years on. And I think we would all like to know when that is issued.
Absolutely.
It's a big one.
It is.
So, and then more to come on those change orders.
Yes, exactly. That's what I have for your reports. So I can do the next two together. Those are still on hold, as you're aware, with the questions that are surrounding the grant assurances. There's been some progress with communications there. However, we've just put those two on hold until we get better understanding of how to proceed moving forward. So that's my update for those two. I have.
Okay, does anybody else have anything else on the question of the pending matters? Capital projects?
Capital projects, I was able to meet with both my assistant airport manager and with my finance manager with Ms. Bashiva, and we have some good solid numbers for our FY 27 projects. I think we are still awaiting a quote for the additional skid steer. And the other quotes seem reasonable that we have received for these projects. We have a deadline of July 18th to have these turned over to the town. The town has requested that airport management will meet with the town manager to review these first before it goes to, is it capital committee? Am I right to say that? Okay, I want to make sure. Capital finance, I get confused at times. They both do business, money related. So, okay, yeah, so they have requested us to sit down at least to let her know what these projects will be before they go on to capital committee. So, and we fine tuned some as we've gotten better quotes. So, as you can see, I'm not going to run through them all because most of them are still the same from last time, our last multi-media, if I'm correct, right? So,
They really are.
They're the same, pretty much everything's the same we saw last time.
Yes, we just changed the pricing of the IT and equipment upgrades. We increased it because there are two servers. We are going to have to replace the current ones are from 2012. And one server costs approximately $25,000. So we increased that request to $100,000, but everything else is presented at the last commission meeting.
Perfect. No question.
Yeah.
Are we required to have servers on site?
yeah,
Yes, yeah, those three particular servers are used for security and training purposes. So we have, I believe we have.
Required to be physically here?
If they.
I'm just curious, like, if we could use a virtual
I think
server,
we are.
Amazon server or something like that versus a hard server in the room. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I believe especially for the security purposes, we are, but probably our IT consultant can give us a better answer.
Yeah, I'm just curious, because it's a lot cheaper to do.
I know the town has their own servers for everything, for police, for fire, and we actually had a meeting with the town IT director. And he consulted with us that we should definitely change those servers, so it sounds like we have to. Well, it's something we could definitely
Yeah,
ask.
we can ask. I'll
Somebody
ask.
that knows better.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure.
From
I
IT.
was just asking. but
Yeah.
Sure, was no fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would think that with security and TSA, if they need to pull coverage of things for cameras and stuff, we would probably need to have them here and stuff. But yeah, we'll look
And
into
the
that.
cameras and.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so no other questions on capital. We'll move on to managed report.
Perfect. Yes, thank you. All right, for AIP, master plan, you saw was presented by Ms. Canham, we had picked an August 5th public open house, but that is now subject to change. So moving forward with the master plan. Continued environmental monitoring, no updates. However, a big shout out to Gary and the maintenance team and assisting our environmental consultants in their field work. They have been very impressed with airport's ability to be able to escort them onto the airfield as needed. And they wanted to give them a great shout out for all their hard work and efforts to get them out there to continue the environmental monitoring. So thank you. We had a successful public meeting for the disadvantaged business enterprises and airport concessions disadvantaged business enterprises. Was it last week or a week prior? We had about 5 to 6 public attendees per session. So it was very well attended. We're very pleased to see that. We're hoping to continue to hold these public outreaches at a more regular, probably more like a quarterly, if not biannual, time each year to provide opportunities for those that are TVE registered and to give them opportunity to potentially bid on projects that we have here at the airport. It's very well done. All right, for non-AIP, the fence relocation, I've already touched base. The project was completed, finalized prior to June 30th. Electric aircraft charging stations, both Madison and I were able to meet with Beta. They have given us a solid construction time for the installation of the new charging unit, looking to do that spring of 26. I don't know if you're aware, if you saw they had their successful flight of their CTOL or their conventional takeoff and landing electric aircraft last month out of Teterboro, if I'm correct. It was published in the news, and so that gives great potential for the eVTOL, which could eventually come to the airport in the future. So finally have progress on that charging station to be installed here at the airport to be able to provide folks the first electric aircraft and fly out of here. So the noise wall, of course, was previously discussed. Premier Fence won that bid there with potential beginnings this fall through May 15th. Excuse me. The ARF transition plan, my assistant manager, Mr. Harriman, has been great at that. He has created a design scope for that work. That's been reviewed by me and my staff. The plan is to have that RFP be put on the street by the end of the month or early August for a September 15th start date. So as you're aware, the last two of our ARF trucks need that transitioning, which requires that professional cleaning to be done before that SFFF, the new foam, can be put into those trucks. So we're making good progress there. And I currently have not received any tenant alteration applications this month. Moving on, RFP bids. The IT services was our only bid that we had. The RFP closed on June 30th. The committee has been selected to begin those evaluation, those proposals, which we are meeting tomorrow to begin that. Operations update, ramp management plan. We were able to successfully meet with some stakeholders, with some commissioning chair, the chair and some commissioners, and management. We're currently working on procuring 2 new GPUs now. For the airport, it was discovered in our discussions that there are some of the larger, newer aircraft, some of the global, some of the newer Gulfstreams. The GPUs cannot handle those loads, and basically their excuse is they have to power down, or they have to keep their APUs running. They can't power down. So we are looking to get 2 new GPUs that would work on any type size aircraft to be able to allow them to power down, cut down on that noise, and be able to jumpstart those aircraft. Yeah, and Preston's been outstanding getting quotes for that. So we're moving forward with those. Also, Preston and I are looking to create a better enforcement plan for the ramp management side of things, looking at potential restrictions on catering, potential escorting privileges for those that continued, specifically case by case, those who continue to not abide by those APU regulations that we have in place. Airline service, all the airlines are currently operating to their full summer schedule right now, and I am meeting with all the airline managers this coming Thursday to discuss just the operations, get to know them, as I haven't had a one-on-one with each of the airlines quite yet. United's the only one I haven't met with. And then just any future ideas and potentials that they may want to bring up that we can discuss with the airport. One question that I do know will come up is that they are looking to try to revise the time frame to renew their leases. That is going to be a hot topic that I've already been preparing for. They want to cut back from 6 months down to 3 months. More to come there as I figure out if this is what all the airlines want, or if it's just one specific airline that's wanting this. So more to come there. But yeah, I'm going to be able to sit down with all of them and pick their brains a little bit. No updates on training. Over the weekend, right at the start of the 4th, or right before the start of the 4th, we had an issue with our baggage belt system that happened in the terminal. From the scanning machine to the end of the bag belt continues to run. So TSA can feed bags through the scanning machine, can do the X-ray machines, can check the bags. So it cut down on the amount of hand checking of each bag. However, from the ticket counter up to that machine, the bag belt system will run for 20 minutes and then it'll kill itself for an hour or two. And then it'll come on for maybe 10 minutes and it just sporadically is going in and out. So we have contacted SIG Aviation, 5-Star, who handles the bag belt systems, as well as the TSA, to come down and troubleshoot. They should have arrived today. They're working on it today, tomorrow, and Thursday to troubleshoot what the issue is. The belief is that the new software system that was installed back in May could have a potential effect on what's happening. And so they're going to look at that software and see what the issue is. If it's potential fuses, they brought extra hardware to be able to swap out to make sure that the bag belt works. So there was a hiccup there over the weekend. We did have staff need to work overtime to keep that back room door secured to be bringing bags in and out through the back way, and because the bag belt system wasn't feeding it into the baggage handling area. Couple of things to note as well coming up. It was officially confirmed that the vice president will be scheduled to visit Nantucket July 22nd through the 23rd. We have been informed by police that there are confirmed demonstrations that are planned. One's on the 17th. There could be some potential others that may happen. So with that being said, we are sticking with the agreement that the airport has in place. We have dedicated enough space in Statue Park for those First Amendment rights to be happened. If we start to see any demonstrations happening in the terminal, near the terminal, we will ask the police to remove them, as that is not agreed upon. So keep it to that. Also, if any overtime, I will approve any overtime, as this is a heavy lift during VIP visits as we've had in the past. So be prepared as more details come about that I am allowed to share from Secret Service, from the White House. I'll let you guys know. So more to come there.
What's he doing here, do we know? Fundraising?
Fundraiser dinner.
Yeah,
So that's the 22nd, 23rd.
22nd, 23rd. I do believe the 22nd evening is the fundraising dinner, as was posted, I think, on the Nantucket Current, from what I saw.
Do you have a sense of the TFR? We like when the president's here or not?
It's scaled down. I'd have to look back, but there will be some level. It's not, you're not gonna have to go through security. I don't believe it's called TSA to get in and out. But there will be some sort of restriction. There's, I look back at our old procedure will be a bit of, but
I just curious.
yeah.
Supposed to be a way to.
Okay, yeah. When I get back to the office, I'll look up and see what we did for the last VP. Sure.
We had a hiccup this morning with fuel delivery. The barge that brings the fuel over, unfortunately, went down on a mechanical issue. So we are closely monitoring our fuel tanks and properly forecasting any potential restrictions. As was discussed with my assistant manager, those restrictions could possibly come beginning of the end of this, by the end of this week, but more to come. I don't know if you want to provide any more.
Yeah, we were scheduled to have 20,000 gallons of fuel arrive this morning. I believe the freight boat had a mechanical issue. So it puts a big dent in our inventory, and we're selling close to 20,000 gallons a day right now. So we're gonna make that call probably tomorrow, whether or not we're gonna institute some restrictions. It'll start with GA corporate side. And then we'll reserve enough for our airlines, and when we start getting really critically low, it will cut general aviation and try to save as much fuel as we can for the airlines. And then when that's done, it is 5,000 gallons for emergency zone.
So you can request, when we have problems like this, you can request to have that boat replaced.
Who can
Distinction, you can.
Who do you,
Like
just
we,
call a
in
steam
the
ship?
winter time, we had to do that, right?
Yeah.
We've lost like, was 2 boats in a row because of the weather, not mechanical, but needed the fuel, right? Because it's the winter time. And you call reservations and you have to, unfortunately, Nat's out of commission right now, but that's what I'll tell you to call that whole, because he's our representative.
Okay,
But so is Rob Granny, he's also a representative, so you might be able to reach out to him
okay.
to try to get some of those reservations back.
So that's not available for,
As far as I know, no.
okay.
I understand it's not available.
Good enough. Great. Thank you.
And I also gave you my,
Yes.
there's some extra spot though.
Thank you.
Yeah, any load would help, like,
Yeah.
you know. So if there's a way that we can connect through other suppliers that's what's happened in years past. So there's been some trading, I think that has happened, but.
Yeah, that's what I gave,
Usually through that.
I gave.
So-
Mark's.
Let's take that off.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Moving forward, over the weekend, we had 2 drone sightings, that I think appeared to be near the beach. Per the ATM, the air traffic manager, that seems to be very common this kind of time of year, unfortunately. But just want to advise that, you know, drones are unsafe for those who are operating aircraft, those in aircraft, those on the ground, should something adverse happen to the aircraft and fall out of the sky. So just, you know, to the public, just make sure that, you know, there's no drones are allowed around an airport, 5-mile radius that pretty much covers the majority of the island. And if drones need to be flown, that they need to be registered through the FAA, contacted through the FAA for that approval. So moving on to statistics. Operations were up 6% for May. They were also up 11% year to date. Southwest ramp operations were also up for 7% for May. Employments were down 23% for May and up 8% year to date. JetBlue was down 71% for May. Their Boston was up 25% with a 52% load factor. However, White Plains was down 45% with only a load factor of 39%. Tradewind was up 254% compared to last year. They were probably our largest increase in service to the airport. Cape Air employments were up 24% this last month. I'm sorry, for May. Boston was up 33%. EWB was down 21%. Hyannis up 7%, and Martha's Vineyard. When I see MVI, I think of Maryville for some reason. Martha's Vineyard was up 132%. Delta Airlines JFK was up 6,120%. Their load factor was at 82 for all their flights, which was higher than I think we've ever seen for the month of May. And LaGuardia was up 81% with a load factor of 88. So Delta definitely has been very healthy looking at the numbers for the month of May for the seasonal visitors. Fuel, Jet A fuel was up 6.4% year to date, with roughly 2.211 million gallons sold to date. Also up 12.8% over the last 3-month average and up 6.5% the previous month. May was 142,000 gallons of fuel sold. 124,000 gallons sold at the FBO, which is almost 15% increase year to date. And then 18,000 gallons sold at the terminal, which is actually 11.5% decrease year to date. 100 low lead is up 1.7% year to date, up 11.3% over the previous 3 months, and up 32.2% the previous month, which had roughly 11,000 gallons sold. Freight is up 24% for May, down 9% year to date. Cape Air freight is up 15%. USPS is up 954%, so an uptick in the postal service. And FedEx was down 31%. For noise complaints, for May, there were 4 new complaints, which is an actual decrease in 67% year to date. One resident was in Plymouth who called again in the month of May, concerned about roots that were over the house and over the water that was disturbing the fauna around his or her home. They requested no follow-up from airport staff, which is odd. And we never got contact information from them. There were 2 complaints received regarding IFR flights over their house. A noise complaint from a resident who called twice about the same issue with low-flying aircraft. They did not leave their name, address, or time of event. However, airport staff was able to call back that number, spoke with the individual regarding their complaint. 3 out of those 4 complaints were called back and spoken to by our environmental coordinator to provide more context and detail about our noise abatement and those routes. APU, there were 18 initial warnings were provided to pilot PICs for the month of May. 16 of those PICs complied with the APU limitations, or they provided valid reasons for running their APUs. And then airport operations also provided 2 secondary warnings to PICs. Per operations, pilots have been overly respective of the 15-minute APU usage limit on the ramp and utilizing the GPUs that have been provided. And again, I've mentioned airport's going to purchase 2 new GPUs to handle all type aircraft to assist with those APU noise abatement practices. Personnel report, all seasonal staff have been hired and we're at full capacity. And running smoothly. And that's all that I have for my manager's report.
Thank you. Any questions?
One quick comment, I'm sorry, the GPUs are a 32-week lead time for brand new ones, so we're not gonna get them for the summer, so we are having an internal meeting. Warren and Fred, our ops superintendent, to look at the possibility of renting a couple for the remainder of the season. We've got a couple of companies that I've reached out to get some price quotes from.
Great, but we'll still order the other one.
Yeah,
So the
absolutely.
32 weeks now would put us on time for the next year. So
Absolutely.
that's fine, progress. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I hope that's, helpful. I know the meeting I had, that was sort of, I asked for feedback, what could the commission do? That would help, and that was sort of what I received from, staff, was that if you guys could give us the GPUs, and that's what we're trying to do here, is give everybody the tools they need. The other thing I would ask or mention is that there's also the north ramp that needs to be looked at, where there was a condition of the leases that they provide their own GPUs. And has that happened? It doesn't seem like maybe that's happening. And I want to be sure that hasn't been missed.
Like I said, I'm meeting with the airlines on Thursday, so that's definitely something.
Are you talking about our tenants?
No.
No, oh,
No,
okay.
no, no, I'm
Okay.
talking about commercial operators.
Okay.
No, commercial operators. I'm
Okay.
sorry, North Rim, commercial operators only. No, tenants, I think,
Okay, so utilizing
probably much
GPU.
more fuel conscious in terms of like,
Oh.
not to, I just don't think that's.
The wheel stopped.
I don't think that's the issue. No, I'm talking about, the commercial operators. And whatever reminder that they may, I get that there's a lot of ground holds, delays from other places, but that's all the more reason to have, if they've got a delay of 2 hours. I would hope they would go on to a GPU, but it seems like that hasn't been happening, and there's been some, extended runtime. So I know we supposed to report this live, but truth is, the next 6 weeks are, not much is probably gonna be different. And it seemed like we were getting some overstays perhaps as well, so I know you have a meeting, so. Whatever we have to do to address those, I know with former manager, there was some discussion about that being without limited gate space, a very significant concern. I also would relay that I had received a call last week, someone that was stuck on the ramp on a particular airline, for an hour and a half. That they couldn't get to one of our gates and what's going on. And I wasn't gonna go calling you about that, but I just wanted to relay that there is both a passenger experience, and that happens at all airports. I'm sure we've all experienced that. But I think that from our side as managing the airport and commission, what do we have to do to provide infrastructure and or changes to policies that hopefully, to the extent that is manageable. If it's a one-off, has happened, but if all of a sudden it might have been related to the bag belt situation, I think the timing might have been similar to that. I'm not sure. I wasn't aware of that at the time. And that gets to the point, again, this kind of snowball where we had talked about terminal optimization, the need for that bag belt. And so I could see how that one problem there then leads to a problem on the ramp. So, just have to keep working on it.
Yeah.
We did utilize the South Apron Hartsdale.
Yeah.
We had a carrier down there that got towed due to a mechanical, so it worked. And then we also reminded the airlines that spot 7, which is furthest one down toward the hangars, that is a, common use spot that needs to be coordinated through the airport, for the airlines that are maybe experiencing, the aircraft's, mechanical issue. Or a flight that's been sitting for a while to come back in and do what they need to do. So just kind of reinforce that with the airlines.
Please, thank you. Great, thank you. Um. Any other commissioners' comments?
I'm freezing in there. It says 72 degrees, I was, it feels like it's 50.
I don't know, I could do that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's over there.
Wow.
I just wanted to say that the arrival's been updated to Nantucket. So that all of all the jets that come here now, they all are routed all the way around the the east side of the island and everything, and they come all the way up and around and come back in on 2-4 and or 6. So that was just updated within the last month. So, and it kind of brings everybody offshore a little further. That's why
Great.
a noise, I think, was helpful.
It's good to hear.
I didn't know too, is there any other space like you have those big jets, right, that we don't have any fear for yet, or GP rather? Is there another space, like, I was wondering about that space on the north ramp, is it possible just to park them in a different place where if they have to run like that? Away from that, over, the area
Yeah.
we're concerned about with the noise? Or even up near the terminal, I don't know if that gets them too close to the runway there, in front of where the Blade building, that is.
I've seen the commercial. There's been times where they ditch them into the whole bay just to sit there and wait because their ETA.
Yeah, we can
Updated.
probably utilize the
Seen that.
run-up area, with air traffic
Yeah,
permission. There's not a lot of room on that north ramp. We're utilizing, I think, every square inch of that. My thought was the south apron, the hard stand, and then possibly right next to it.
Yeah.
It'd be on the asphalt, so then you're risking
Running,
running.
especially on the hot days.
Exactly. With a heavy airplane. Correct.
Yeah,
So it's a tough.
we don't want
call.
to damage after everything, we'll just put it in there. Right. Anybody else have anything? I just had one, which was, I wanted to, wish Commissioner Topham well. This would have been her last meeting and she, has served the community. As part of our commission, it's been great working with her and, wish her all the best. And, the select board have appointments tomorrow night, so at our next meeting, we will, be joined by a new commission. That's all I have. Is there, anything else? Public comment?
No one from the public.
Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion to go into.
Oh, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry.
Mr. Kuster. Yes, Mr. Kuster, the floor is yours.
Hello, how are you?
Fine, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. Let me see if my video starts. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure if this is the right commission for this or not, or even if you're aware of what I'm about to talk about, but I wanted to bring it to your attention. The airport and the airlines have really served, us very well. And that's myself and my partner, Lucy Dillon. They've served us very well until, recently. We've been off for a couple of years. Lucy had a lung transplant and she's doing really well. And we're back on island. One of the things, and why I say the airport and the airlines, I'm not sure how they work, to solve this, but she needs to have tests and things like a lot of people do on Nantucket. And some of those tests can't be done at the cottage hospital. So that means the closest thing for us is to go to Hyannis. So I thought, no problem. For us, we need to look at the minimum amount of people that we connect with wherever we go. So going on the boat is a potential, life-changing problem for us because of all the people. Flying on a small plane like Cape Air needs to be a little more manageable. Well, we've come to find out that during the month of July, the entire month of July, I cannot get a same-day flight from Nantucket to Hyannis and back. And when I call, Cape Air and Nantucket Airlines, I was literally told that, well, we're geared up for bringing people to the island. So, but this is not even one day out of the month can we go there and back on the same day. So it's great to hear, I appreciate the fact that our, airport manager is going to meet with the airlines. Maybe I hope this is something that you raise with them, because one of the things that I've learned, going through this process is that we're not alone. There's a lot of people on the island that have this need. And, hopefully none of you have it. We didn't expect to be in this situation, but, and we'd like to be able to stay on Nantucket. So anyway, thank you for listening. If you can help in any way, we're trying to get to, Hyannis for a 1:00 doctor's appointment on the 28th of July. Anyway, thank you. That's all I had to say.
Thank you, Mr. Kuster, and we wish both you and Ms. Dillon the best. There is an Angel Med Flight option you might want to Google and look up that perhaps might work. There's also another airline that has started that is running, I think it's just one flight a day, each direction, Gull Air. I know they hope to do more. I think that you would find, it's a very similar situation with the boats, that it's pretty much impossible to get a reservation. I mean, I think it's the island is busting at the seams. I think we know that. But I think the airport commission sympathizes with you, and we are in a role. The airport is really a landlord to the airlines, but at the same time, we try to have policies that would promote year-round service, and welcome that, and share your concern, and hope that we could, that they could be expanded, year-round service to Hyannis. I think that would be a dream come true, if you would, from an airport's perspective, if that could get off the ground again, the way sort of it was in some times past. But we do wish you the best. I appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
I was wondering if maybe in the meeting next week, if you could ask the airlines to consider holding a spot once periodically for this kind of thing, like the steamship does already, right? There's so many slots every day that are there just for that reason, for medical emergencies and so on.
Sure. I do want to provide one quick context to that. Unfortunately, Cape Air, their manager is unable to meet with us on this Thursday. His father has fallen ill, so he had to bow out. We had initially scheduled for the 23rd of July, as you're aware. We are getting a visitation from the vice president, so we have to push that one back again. So I'm working on hopefully getting to hold a meeting with the management at Cape Air, hopefully prior to the end of this month, due to just the conflict. So I just want to put that out there. So, but yes, I will ask the other airlines about holding a spot. I think it's a smart idea, for sure.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other public comment?
No other public comments.
Okay, and with that, I would entertain a motion to enter into executive session for general law, chapter 38, section 21A, to review the executive session minutes enumerated on the agenda, to discuss strategy with respect to pursuing legal claims against the manufacturer of PFAS, other sources of PFAS, discuss strategy with respect to potential litigation, and discuss strategy with respect to potential litigation regarding Turo, all items of which I have determined an open session may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the airport commission, not to return to open session. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
So is there a second? Ms. Blansden, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Scarron?
Aye.
Mr. Marks?
Aye.
And Chair votes aye. Thank you, everybody.
Hey, Preston, Sunday.